my
I apologize.
when my mother-in-law, or she was about to be my mother-in-law, when she passed away, Cassie said the only thing she wanted to see right then was the Fun Run episode.
Mm.
And like, again, it's that comfort and not just what's going on, but like even the stakes that are so present in that are about community in a lot of ways. And so for her, like whenever she's had a bad day, whenever we've gotten bad news or anything like that, we just put on the Fun Run, and that is our go-to. Like, all right, we're gonna ignore the world for a little while and just laugh at the fact that Jim and Pam go antique shopping during a rabies awareness race.
Would you like to participate in a run that is seeking a cure for a disease that has already been eradicated?
Oh, you went back to school.
So we are, by the way, for those of you seeing this recording, obviously know because you're watching it on Spiff's Instagram, I forgot to start this recording on time. So I apologize for that. We're talking about—
It'll start a little bit later. Okay, so here's my list that I put out, and I will, again, put this in the comments. If you were to only watch, and I think it landed at 13. Arthur asked me for 10, and I couldn't do it. I think I ended at 13. So if you are new to The Office, if you are someone that just wants a kind of highlights reel or what I personally feel are my favorite episodes, you start with season 1, episode 2, Diversity Day. I think it offers you a beautiful look into what you can expect of the kind of awkwardness, the humor. I think it sets the tone. I think it's a little, some of it doesn't age well, and I think that that's also to be named.
Well, the very fact of, I never really realized it. I never saw it before, of Michael wearing Martin Luther King Jr. on his head, trying to get people to attack each other using racial stereotypes. There's layers. There's
layers.
Yeah.
And then you go to season 2, episode 1, the Dundies, which is their first Dundee witch. If you're not friends, every good 3 who is a fan of The Office should have a Dundee. That sits on my desk. Then you go to The Injury, which is where Michael Scott, George Foreman's his foot.
One of the best episodes of television.
I could not agree more. It just one of my favorite things to do, having sat in a lot of writers' rooms back in the day, is to imagine just how someone might pitch that. Like, okay, like, what's the table room or the table of writers looking like and thinking when they say, okay, imagine, Michael makes himself breakfast every morning by waking up to the smell of bacon because he plugs in a George Foreman grill next to his head.
And he leaves raw meat out in his bedroom.
He leaves raw meat out all night
hours.
and then bakes his foot.
And then he ships his foot.
Yeah. And then he shows up with the, okay, oh my goodness. So many spoilers, friends, ahead. Then you go to Casino Night. Then I think The Convict, just 3-9.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to Fun Run.
The season starts with Michael talking in his car, driving up, and he's like, things were pretty good. And then he hits Meredith Palmer. With a car.
And then my favorite episode of all time, which I know is a fan favorite, is Dinner Party. Hold on, I'm going to read through this whole thing and then we can come back. And then you go to season 6, episode 4 and 5, Niagara, which is the Jim and Pam wedding. Then you go to Garage Sale, which is where you start to see Michael go. Then you go to the Michael Goodbye, which is 7/22. And then you can go to the finale. I realize I actually do think there's a lot of really funny stuff in season 8 and early season 9. I realize that not a lot of people, I think that I love Robert California.
So, fun fact, back in my drinking days, I was at a party, and I think it was Seth Rash. I can't positively say it because I
Shout out to my boy Seth Rash.
Well, yeah, I don't remember, but I do remember that I was drunk, and apparently, like, he started calling me Robert California for a couple weeks because I was doing stuff. I didn't realize I was imitating Robert California at that point, but I was like, tell me about your childhood. Do you find it important that you know everything now because of that? Like just, and yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
I remember somebody saying it freaked him out. I don't know if it was the.
Maybe that gets to one of the other parts of this. Now, I mean, mind you, I truly believe that there is a part of television that, like, if you're going longer than 5 seasons, you better have a good reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
Either your first season was real abbreviated, or, you know, like, you still have some story to tell, or, you know, like something funny to contribute. And so going 8 and 9 seasons was really tough for this show because they lost one of their main, like, gels that was in there. So searching for Robert California in there was also putting us off our guard because we had no clue what to expect from this dude. And he just kind of came in and out. Like, I remember
he was
watching
so damn weird.
Yeah. But watching it live, and you get to the end of season 7, and you're going, wait, is Will Ferrell the new boss? Or is Jim Carrey the new boss? If Ray Romano is the new boss, I am stopping watching this show. I actually said that and meant it.
You hate Ray Romano?
Everybody hates Ray. Anyway.
I love Ray Romano. Oh!
But it just, like, all, you know, we were so confused. If Warren Buffett was the new Michael, that would have been amazing. But so, I mean, we were kind of thrown off kilter in there. And there were some interesting stories that went on there, like season 8 and the whole, like, you know, Sabre, and the way that they were digging through there and trying to figure out, like, technology things and doing the Apple Store. Like, those were funny in and of themselves, but they didn't necessarily contribute always to the show. So it's like that gel. What do you do when you lose the thing that holds you together? And
is that a Good Friday question?
That's a real good question right there.
Oh.
Because I did not like who Andy became at the end of season 8, and I definitely did not like Andy in season 9, like, ever.
Maybe that's a post ascension question. Maybe that's a Pentecost question.
Ooh, and we are coming into Pentecost.
What do you do with when Christ comes back? He will do so teared up, saying, "That's what she said at the right time." So okay, but here's a theory on that. Okay. Dwight, who in our model, if we're suggesting this is an ascension-based theory of Michael Scott paralleling, but certainly not being the Christ figure in this, Dwight would be Peter. Yes.
Happy birthday, Jesus. Sorry, your party's so lame. Sorry.
Dwight, just as Andy became worse in seasons 8 and 9, like almost intolerable in season 9, Dwight became so much better. I'm going to argue every single episode, Dwight became a better human and grew into something entirely different.
Totally agree.
And, you know, at the end where he says, "My best friends work for me," he fires Jim to give him severance.
Yeah, to give him severance, yeah.
It works. I like that. I'm sorry, Travis. I'm just figuring stuff out.
No, that's
the
exactly
best I love it. So for me, I don't, as I rewatched, because I rewatched it again this week because, you know, COVID makes you really, if you're a 3, I feel a lot of us 3s are leaning into our 9s, you know, late at night. So rewatching all of this. For me, and I don't know how y'all feel about this, but I had a new lens on the gym look. I think, how do you feel, or how does this sit with you, that the gym look in the theological world of The Office is the invitation to Christian reflection, is the invitation to you know, that, like, kind of what's happening. It's sometimes good, it's sometimes bad, it's sometimes awkward, but it's that, like, hey, have you stopped and paused and taken a look and reflected on what is happening around you?
So it's like it's the day that somebody realizes you can say, "This is stupid and I hate it," in church, or they can say, "I completely reject this narrative. I completely disagree with the scripture." It's the day that we're able to say, "I don't think the Spirit is guiding us," is the equivalent of
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's an awkwardness to humanity, and there's an awkwardness to this show that allows us to feel vulnerable, and allows us to and it calls us to reflect. I'm sorry, but there is nothing more cringeworthy than Scott's Tots. Scott's Tots is the worst thing.
I can't watch that.
I can't watch it. It makes me cringe.
No.
And I sit there and I go, and I think to myself, and it's not, and that's not even like a Jim look. That's when you get Stanley, who just like busts laughing, being like, "Has it been 10 years already?" And you hear this narrative of the hope for good, right? And the intention of Scott's Tots is that Michael thinks he's gonna, really be able to help these people, and just hasn't been truthful to himself or the people around him for so long, and gets caught up in this narrative that all of a sudden gets caught. And it is hard to watch. It is one of the just cringeworthiest parts of television ever. And yet, every time I make myself watch it, because I, as a 3 who, for those of us that tuned in last week and we talked about Enneagram, our fear of lacking authenticity, our imposter syndrome, my imposter syndrome in that moment is always called into question. Who are my Scott's Tots? And is that how do I stop that from happening? Because that is the moment in my soul that I try to avoid at every cost.
Well, as a 7 who's future oriented to the nth degree, it's that same idea of, I look at Michael Scott, and the whole thing is, he decided it was done in the future. The idea was accomplished in the future. Therefore, he didn't have to do anything else to make it happen. It was just going to occur because the idea itself is worthy. Therefore, the idea itself will be tenacious. I really like the depth of your thinking about The Office. It's wonderful, Spiff. Can we talk about the dinner party for a second?
Always.
Okay.
I'll take you by the hand and make you a man. Here we go.
I was really glad that, what is the horrible woman's name? Jan
Levinson Gould, but
I
Gould
thought
died.
Jan,
the Gould is gone.
Michael through the glass door.
No, sorry. You thought what?
I started to get like a tenseness of, like, they have a highly volatile, abusive relationship.
Oh yeah.
And like, I was worried that she had thrown Michael through the door. Like, I forgot that he ran through it because of ice cream, which is hilarious and humiliating. But like it just, I can't, that one hurts.
Okay, babe.
Okay, babe.
Okay, but take what we were just talking about, the most gracious parts or the most gracious intentions of Scott's Tots, and we still have that here, where Michael is going, "Oh, this is my wife, who I will have catch-up fights with," and all this other sort of stuff. And he even makes a movie that demonstrates all the things that he thinks should be a perfect marriage. He doesn't even show the perfect marriage. He shows that Catherine Zeta Scarn has died. And so, again, he's not looking for the actual work in this. He is just declaring it so and making it happen, or, pretending that it has happened. And when he's faced with those sort of realities, you start to see him, like, when he actually does come down from that pie in the sky kind of stuff, Holly is, oh my gosh, like such he over romanticizes his relationship with Holly, but when they actually propose, the Goodbye Michael stuff that you watched, like, he is facing a reality that knows he's got to be part of it. He can't just declare it. He's got to be there and actually, making the sort of changes that make that don't know what the reality is.
That we'll go back to the dinner party in just a minute, but I think the Goodbye Michael thing, if you use fire as the metaphor, you see the full arc of Michael. He starts with, "I'm going to light the parking lot on fire with gasoline to ask Holly, will you marry me?" And at the end, it's a bunch of candles. It's a communal thing. He involves other. There's still fire, right? They still set off the fire alarm, but it's manageable, and he can hold it in the palm of his hand, and it's still there's still a chance of burning the place down, but the
responsibility is spread to everyone.
But exactly.
And if we're talking ascension, this is Pentecost.
Yeah.
Because after that point, the next 3 episodes are just, and I do remember the Jim convincing Dwight to make himself his own assistant, or like the assistant to the regional man. Like I remember the mobile. But that is that is what I think is the ultimate difference between The Office and Parks and Rec. That's what's missing in the Schur-verse of Parks and Rec. Leslie Knope was the lead. She was the main character, and then Ron, and then there was the rest of them. In The Good Place,
Eleanor.
What's that?
Eleanor Shellstrop.
I'm really good with names of real people that I've met, but not.
Good for you. Yeah. That's a better skill to have.
I don't think so in this context, but Eleanor is the main character, and then Chidi, and then Ted Danson, and Jason is not the lead. In The Office, it was Michael Scott, everyone else. I mean, Jim and Pam and Dwight kind of, but they never hit the. Michael had way too much of a piece of the pie. If we're talking about it, we have the whole like ministry with Christ, ministry like there's a clear line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the proposal was the attempt to spread it out, or at least it was an indication that they're all supporting characters to this one person.
Well, because it was an invitation to say, like, for so long we have had this founding light, this guidepost. You looked to Michael, but it was the invitation to say Michael is leaving, right? We're moving to Denver. We all need to carry our weight in value and community going forward.
And maybe it matters that no one really became the lead after Michael left. Maybe that's
right, and I think that's why you cycled through all the new regional managers. You cycled through Sabre, and then go back to David Wallace, and
But ironically, do you find that Dwight's?
I do too.
Dwight's dominance was not as the dominance that he was seeking. He was seeking to be in control of everybody. Mm-hmm. and dominating them through that way. But by the end, when Dwight actually does become manager, yeah, sure, he's got them doing the weirdest dang things that you can imagine.
The yoga parking lot?
Yeah, parking lot yoga every morning, and Meredith is actually like able to wear shoes or something. Anyway.
No, she's wearing a bra.
Yeah, that's it. But
none of them wearing shoes because Angela says, look at her feet. And Angela's still
yeah.
Yes.
But that office, the office then, like the physical entity of it, becomes this place where people have this back and forth, and the way that they are together becomes a community. Again, you're talking the post-ascension kind of stuff, is that Dwight maybe wanted to be Peter, wanted to be that dominance, wanted to say, no, this is right, this is wrong, all this other sort of stuff. But what he found was the way that they intertwined, the way that they actually found leadership was not to be one central organization, that did the bidding of the one person, but to be many people who were just doing what they're supposed to be doing like the intention or the mission of what the office is about. Paper.
So
well, so the office is about paper, but I would argue that also that the office is about the holiness of the mundane. I feel God in those chilies. We see the love, and one of my very favorite episodes would
great call, great pull. Sorry, that was really well done.
Thank you. It helps that I've seen this more times than I can count. But the gossip episode, right? The gossip episode to me is one that is like I often say, those of us that are in vocations of service, like people are the best and worst part of our jobs. Mm-hmm. And I think, and we see that in the gossip episode, we see a need to connect. Michael is gossiping because he wants to feel on the inness of this, right? And it gets out of hand, and people are hurt. And at the very end, we're about to hear about Stanley's infidelity in like this like real way. And Jim and Pam kind of come in and are like, no, it really was this. We really are pregnant. We really are.
We're about to hear about Stanley's infidelity in this like real.
I hear me, whoever that was.
Sorry.
That's okay. And so that was that there's redemption, that there is goodness, that there is community. And for me, that gossip episode really shows how we are the very best and the very worst, and it all happens simultaneously. And we are each given the opportunity to rise up, because at any given time, anyone could have been like yes or no, like who do we believe? How do we believe them? I think the only one that everyone was like, this is people were believing that Toby was a virgin. He's like, I've got a daughter, but like people like actually went along with that one.
No, did you ever start lies just for the fun of it, like counseling summer camp? Josh Toulouse once convinced a summer camp that my hair was a wig. And like everyone knew it was not true, but it was absolutely a truth. On the paper thing, it is the mundane. It is the mundanity in it. Paper is the most mundane. They'd make a commercial at one point, don't they? Where it's like they wad it up and it's an airplane and it's, you're not a criminal for Stanley. We do need to talk about white privilege in this show, because it just shines a light on it. Oh my God. But I need to throw out a theological counterpoint on Dwight if I could.
Do it.
I think Dwight exemplifies the character of God as both the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Mortal, do you think God changes his mind? And one who is in process. And as a middling process theologian, Dwight's the same. Dwight expands. Dwight becomes more dimensional. So that which he was doesn't change, but because of the other aspects of his character being revealed. Maybe I'm getting too out there. It's okay. Can we that's the only other topic I want to talk about, and I want to respect your time, Spiff, because I know we have about 20 minutes. But can we talk about the whole like spoofing white fragility, racism, privilege?
Oh, it's a super, I mean, that this show is filled with white privilege. Just in every form possible. And
it's aware of it for the most part, because it's doing the same thing as they did with That's What She Said. Sometimes
I would think, I would say at the very beginning, it's not, because you see that in casting, right? You get Kelly and you get Stanley
and Oscar.
But okay, so you get it's tokenism, right? I mean, like, it's like Michael calling the Diwali gathering a costume party, and so I forget. Oh, what is her name? It's gonna drive me nuts. It's his wife. It's his wife in real life. Yeah.
Nancy.
But whatever her character name is, she shows up as a cheerleader. Carol, thank you. Carol shows up as a cheerleader, and she goes, I thought you said this is a costume party. And he's wearing his costume with the double head, and he just takes it off so he's in a suit. But then poor Carol's.
But see, it's a great line, and it's because Michael Scott is he wants to participate in community, but he's not willing to learn anything or to examine himself. But they had to write it that way, therefore they had to be aware of that would cause the problem. So I mean, it is. I don't know.
And I mean, episode 2 is called Diversity Day, right? I mean, like they call it into focus for maybe to point out that things are already wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we're looking back and saying, oh, this is wrong, but like we've started in a place of
we start in a place that is unbalanced.
Yeah.
So I like the Disciples. It freaks me out. You told me that the general minister and president of our denomination watches this sometimes, and I love Terry, and I'm not going to address her specifically. But
listen,
she's who my 2:00 meeting is with, so that's
cool. Two of us actually have a different denomination that we can jump to if we really mess things up in the Disciples. So, aren't you in the UTC as well, Spiff?
Yeah, our churches, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. I'll just go Independent Fundamentalist Baptist.
I don't think as the first vice moderator of the Disciples I can hop ship. But
Our mission statement or an identity statement is we're a movement for wholeness in a fragmented world. And I've found myself always saying we're a fragmented movement for wholeness in a fragmented world, because it and maybe that's the starting point with The Office, is we are fragmented. And they show people with flaws, and they show people, everyone on that show is that you can identify with, but you don't want to.
Oh yeah.
Like I get Meredith way better than I should. I also loved the line of, y'all were selectively editing. I finished my doctorate during the course of filming.
Her PhD in child psychology.
Yes.
That's right, Jakey.
What?
That's right, Jakey. Good song choice, Jakey. Woo!
She's super, her stripping son. And then at the very end, she's like none of you ever took a dump in the shredder. Like, I see you, sister. It's just like,
it wasn't me.
Meredith, I think, Meredith and Creed are two of my all-time favorite characters.
Well,
in a way that
said to Creed, just do whatever you want.
What?
Just do whatever you want. Say whatever you want. We'll make it work. Like, it would just be, oh, thank God it's like, Halloween.
It's Halloween. That's like, and he's covered in blood. And you're like, oh my goodness, yes. Sorry, I have notes. I made notes.
Okay, the finale.
Finale
is the most again really redeeming of the entire show. Mm-hmm. And again, we don't actually, like, even less than Parks and Rec, we don't know what they're doing. You know, we get the ending of this time as The Office, but The Office goes on. We get the ending of this entity of Jim and Pam in Scranton, and Jim, who, you know, only left Scranton to go to Stanford and then come right back. You know, we get the ending of Andy as the biggest jerk and then weirdly redemptive. Again, probably some white male privilege in that, or definitely.
Wawa. Only a white man can make Baby Wawa into like a graduate position at Cornell.
Okay.
Although, so I did quote Andy in my sermon this week for seniors, because he has one of the best lines of the entire series, which is, "I wish there was a way to know that you were in the good old times before you've actually left them."
Yeah.
And so, like, all of this to say, the finale wraps up this show in such a way that says, this era that you have known is no longer. The good old times are now kind of like, here's a nice little bow of this, but there is something that will go on. There is something that will continue to happen, because Oscar has run for office and is fixing, you know, streets like the Enneagram 1 that he needs to be. That's one of the few that I can actually like name on this show. And then, you know, Kevin is going to have a bar, and I guarantee you that the show of Kevin in the bar would be really fun. Creed's going off to prison, where he's still going to be the weird guy who says, "Oh, thank God that it's Halloween there." But, you know, all this sort of stuff, like, they don't
flash forward, and they don't show after the show.
Yeah, you don't see Jim and Pam in Austin.
You don't get revelation.
But you do get it with the only character who mattered on this show, which is Michael Scott, because he got 2 years away. So you were able to see 2 years into his future after he should have been crystallized into amber, where he has a wife and he has so many pictures of his kids, he has 2 phones. There's implications on this.
It's like all of his kids grew up and married each other, which is every parent's dream.
Can we, I feel like I'm going like into the paint on this, and maybe it's out of irreverence for this show, and please don't let me overstep. So speaking of white male mediocrity as the standard bearer, like, you can be 3 times more capable like Oscar, and he was never even in consideration for management, right? Like, Oscar may have been a good, anyways. Did y'all ever watch Top Chef?
Yes.
Did you watch season 11 where it was a guy named Nicholas Elmy versus Nina Compton? Nina was a San Lucian woman, and she was innovative, and she was able to fuse Caribbean and Italian foods. And then there was Nicholas, who was in the bottom every single week. And he was aggressive, and he was rude, and he was presented as mediocre. And he ended up winning in the finale versus...
He's an Andy Bernard.
He's an Andy Bernard. I think you were the one who put the wonderful phrase in my mind, Spiff, of to have the confidence of a mediocre white guy.
Oh, my 2019 goal was to operate with the confidence of a mediocre white man.
And so, as a white man, I don't know if I'm mediocre or excellent, and I'm assuming there's a spectrum because I'm a human. I do my best to like at least step back on that privilege and examine it, and perhaps not always participate in it. Anyways, thank you for the phrase, and I hope you hit your 2019 goal. Do you think you did?
I think I got 80% there, but I think as a 3, I don't think I'll ever attain whatever that looks like, whatever 100% is. But I think that's the call of white privilege. I think it's yes, it is important. It's layered, right? We're multifaceted people. As a white woman, as a straight white woman, that I carry so much privilege, and it's our call to look into the camera, to stop and be reflective and say, what have I participated in? What are the consequences of that? And how hopefully next time do we learn? Jim pushes against every single thing about Dwight, right? Like for the most part, he's messing with Dwight at every single turn. And in the end, he's his bestest mensch. And even at the end, there's some doubt there where they get out of the limo and there's the bazooka and Dwight's like, "We're gonna kill me," and he's like, "You're gonna," what does he say? Something like, "You're gonna off me," and he's like, "No, you're gonna be doing the offing," and hands him the bazooka. The bestest mensch thing really is a really nice juxtaposition as to 9 seasons of the two of them going at it.
There's some real progress from putting a stapler in Jell-O.
Oh, for sure. To putting a stapler in Jell-O to handing him a bazooka, and the trust that is there, and the love and the care. And yet the same stripper shows up, and so there's women throughout the office for you.
Well, okay. So I want to talk about women. I want to talk about race. What happened to Kelly Kapoor is that Mindy Kaling was made like she was given more voice in writing and therefore was allowed to develop a character who is the worst. She is the Jean-Ralphio of
First of all, how dare you?
No, I love her.
I know.
But like she just I always forget. I'm like, oh yeah, because she's dealing with the whole like infantilization of women in the corporate workplace in order to make them quote unquote palatable.
Fashion show at lunch.
Yeah, and
it's like what she's known for, and yet she gives so much.
But from Diversity Day, like, was she just cosplaying as a librarian, or was it like Donna on Parks and Rec, her first appearance where she had the beehive and she wasn't?
No, they the Office Ladies podcast talks about this, where they've been doing Kelly Watch to figure out when she becomes full-on Kelly, when she actually lets her hair down and stops wearing paisley skirts and things like that. And but again, it had more to do with her, like, not just her role in the writing, because I think that she had a stronger role in the writing from Diversity Day on and things like that, but it's that control of the character and the ability to develop her own character that came out through there. Like she wanted to be able to have that weird, kind of boy crazy, like, oh, does Ryan like me kind of thing. And like she wanted to develop that weird sense. But yeah, I think you're right, because when she started, she was the token Indian person in the office, who is a great foil to play off of in Diversity Day, as a token should be, or shouldn't be, whatever. But then when she gets to those fleshing out of it, she's taking a bit more control of her character than she of her character more than the writing.
She where did I read this or watch it? There's an interview with her, and where she, her parents, she talks about her upbringing as an Indian woman, as an Indian kid, right? And I think it was during an interview for what's that night show movie that she did where she was the assistant to The
Late Show. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think she was talking about that, and her parent, she was like, Mom and Dad, I'm on this show. It's going to be, a big thing. And they were like, they were skeptical. She's not the lead, she's choking. And, in season 1, episode 2, she slaps the white male lead just out the gate. And which, brings back some power dynamic. there, and from then on, her parents were like behind her in this show.
Well, and in this show, she was Indian, but her plot points weren't about her being Indian. Like her plot points were she was horribly codependent with Ryan.
Yes.
And it was never, oh, my Indian parents aren't going to accept you because you're not Indian. It was, why don't you love me because we just broke up, which was hilarious. And perhaps that's in a show that is very racially insensitive, sometimes purposefully, sometimes not.
One of my very favorite lines, and it gets me every time, is when Charles is the manager and he keeps calling for Kelly, and she's like, yes, Charles, you want me? And they go back when we learn that Aaron's middle name is Aaron, and so he's like, I'm gonna go with your middle name, and she goes, well, my middle name is Rajnaganda, and I hate it. And then Kevin turns in and he goes, I thought Rajnaganda was a boy's name. Kevin is also just an underrated character that gives such good little glimpses, a glimpse into the holiness of the mundane and humanity. Like
the dog episode in season 9 or season 8, like the dog episode where like he's like, she doesn't really do anything. She doesn't eat much. And I'm like, I genuinely was on the edge of my seat, and I still get that like hurt in there. Oh gosh. Anyway, yeah.
The chili. The chili being
he walks you through it, yeah.
And it looks horrible. And that I think is an important part in it, where it could taste horrible. Like they never bring up the chili again. I know it's a throwaway gag, but I
don't know. I think that the chili would probably be good. I think Kevin does a couple things well, and I think that there's a lot to learn from. You're not meant to love Kevin always, right? Yeah. Like Kevin putting his feet. It has changed the way in which I get ice at hotels. I never get communal ice anymore that you can put your feet into, because he puts his feet into the ice and it grosses me out. You are not meant to love Kevin always, but there are a couple of things that you can do and you can do well, and that those are the things that we are called to lift up, is like my vision of Kevin, and I love him.
So that right there is it. Parks and Rec, you are supposed to love all of the characters. You are supposed to celebrate them in their quirkiness and celebrate them in their failures, and it's loving people fully.
Right.
And The Office instead is, you're not supposed to love everybody. You are.
They're all flawed.
They're flawed, and they're more flawed than perhaps being very excited and enunciating like Rob Lowe or whatever. I'm sorry. I wish we could do another Office episode. I'm actually going to lobby for it because I know we're on a time crunch. And
we can do Office next week too. Let's do Office. Now that we've given everybody that list.
Yep. You can watch the list and we'll take questions.
Yeah, we can do questions. The last thing that I just like, it hit me as I was watching the list, and I'm going to rewatch the list again. For me, one of the things that I love so much, and I think it is at the crux of what The Office and what the Sherverse in this realm is trying to focus us on, right? Is that, so going back to Dinner Party, and there is tension, and there is budding romance, and there is a wait for the meal to even be prepared. Just like 3 hours from now. Anyways, but they're sitting down to dinner, and Michael is dipping his steak in the wine, and he's mad, and they're all just in there, and she's like, can you not do that? And he goes, I have soft teeth, and he continues to do it. And there is a focus of self-care that remains, and that we are each called to address internally, even in the midst of kind of social narratives that tell you not to, relationships that kind of focus you elsewhere. When everything seems turned against you, there is a moment in which even the craziest bits of self-care are holy and good. We're not supposed to steal, and Jim steals the CD. Jan listens to the music of Hunter, which is about her taking his virginity, which is a whole other thing. But I love that he just still so forcefully sticks his, steak in the wine and continues to eat, and names names something for himself in that moment when she continues to kind of take everything away, that I find to be really beautiful. And the other of Michael's characters whom I hate most, I think I hate Date Mike the most. Date Mike the most is such a tool. And yet I think it's a reminder that to be who you're supposed to be. We all hate it because it's not Michael. We're like, oh, this woman actually kind of likes Michael and she was into it. And like, that's good. Show up as yourself, Michael. And
show up as yourself.
Show up as yourself. And when we show up as ourselves, community is made better. We are made better because we are better reflective of the Christ that made us and the community that we are called to build. My church has the divinity of diversity as our like touchstone phrase. And I think that resonates wholly for me here at the office.
So I just want to note while you were talking, and I think it's beautiful because show up as yourself. The only way you can transform is to show up as yourself. Mm-hmm. You can email us now if you ever want to ask a question, because we hope people watching this will watch the playlist of the episodes we've chosen and engage with us. You can email us at 2on1project@gmail.com. So,
yay!
Yeah.
Not taken. Wow.
Yeah, no kidding, right? 2on1project@gmail.com. And I will check it faithfully, and I'll also share the credentials with you, Spiff, of course.
Yeah, let's do it Instagram. Let's do it 2on1 so we can have our own. We'll set this whole thing up. This thing's not going anywhere. 2on1's wonderful.
You know what? This is one of the things I look forward to most in the week, but I also want to respect your time. So this is the end of part 1, and I'm going to stop recording and stop the live.
Okay.
You in, Travis? You in? You're in.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
I had childcare this time, so it's a lot easier.
Awesome. But yeah, so I like the 2on1 is turning into 2, and then Travis is our 1, but it's also our 1 on the theological concepts of the show. And
math is weird and it's beautiful. Okay, see you guys later. We'll make it work.
Yeah. All right. Bye, guys.